What up, peeps? It's your girl Dash coming back to Free on Takes. Well, you guys, it is finally time for a new review for season 3 of Black Lightning. I'm so glad we are back. I enjoyed, of course, season 2. A lot was going on in that season. We are, of course, we're let at the end where Odell has confronted the Pierce family, let him know about the Macovians coming, and Freeland is ground zero. So, of course, I'm dying to see what they had in store for us with this first episode, and they did not let me down. It was an epic episode to get everything kind of up and running full throttle. Now, before I go into this, I just want to note this. When I do this, I do a full discussion, review and discussion. I do not do live reaction with this one. CW does like to crank down on people, uploading live reactions with that. That's why most of these YouTubers out here nowadays are doing Patreon. I don't have the time to do that. I have multiple jobs, so I just prefer to do it this way with occasional screenshot pics of whichever part I'm discussing, with occasional video here and there of a certain clip, maybe an action sequence or whatever. That's my way of doing it. Hopefully you all enjoy it. I do know some people do follow me when I do them, and they seem to like it, so that's the way I prefer to continue doing that. So just wanted to put that out there. So before we get into it, of course, this one is called the Book of Occupation, Chapter 1, The Birth of Blackbird. Now, this one, let's just talk first and foremost about that opening credit scene where it looks similar to a comic book. I love the way it opened up. That was beautiful. I was like not expecting that, but I love how the producers are keeping it fresh with the look every season, trying to change up a little bit, whichever, not to say they really need to. I like the way they do the show with the flow. Now, moving from that, the show opens up. You see an interrogation. We meet two new metas. There was a female and it was a young male, whichever, but then we, of course, see Jefferson Pierce. You can clearly tell he's been there for a while. He looks like he's been literally beaten down because they put him through the ringer. Of course, he has something around his neck, so he cannot use his powers. And you see where it shows like a couple of days have passed, days all the way up to what looked like to be 30, 31 days, and looks like he's finally passed, and he now has his emancipation, whichever, for him to go back to his, his room, whatever. So he's now, I'm assuming, out of this situation where they're constantly interrogating him. And that's good because I'm curious as to, is this what they've been doing to all the different men, asking them questions, making sure they're being, truthful, about, who they are, age, how did you become this, what transpired. You clearly can see that from the girl going through a situation, how she was being treated because, of how, she was her hair, her head dress, dressing, things of that nature. And of course the brother, he wasn't feeling it, he was like, I don't take no, green light, whatever and all that, let me out of here when you gonna let me out. It was just a mess. So of course, from there you see the scene where it looks like Anissa and Reverend Holt. It shows them all in a van because they're heading towards a facility, whichever, and it looks like there's like some sort of facility where they're holding what looks like to be medicine, whichever. And of course, he tells them this is just awful. From there, you see the scene where it showcases, of course, like some alarm goes off and the room turns red, and you see a scene which I'm going to post up in here where it shows a person by the name of, and we get to be kind of, he's introduced to us as, his name is Ned, but he goes by the name, I wanted to write it down, it wasn't, I had to note this, Cyclotronic is what he wanted to call himself. Now, not to laugh at that, whichever, but of course with that, we get introduced to him, we see his powers, and he's, is able to fend off the guys, they're, shooting at him, whatever, and he's able to stop them, whichever, and then deteriorate, from that certain kind of deteriorate the stuff into like, black stuff, like a little smoke or whatever and all that. Now, once we see this situation, he kind of walks up to Anissa, whichever. By that time, he's confronted by a gentleman by the name of Commander Carson Williams. And it's really interesting from there because they have a discussion, whichever, where he basically, asking like, what are you doing, whichever and all that. Come to find out, Ned is being used. He was being used for war. They were using his abilities with it and all that. He was just a guy who stole like a van or whatever and all that. He never wanted to do this. You didn't try to treat him, help or anything. They basically wanted to use him. And it looks like, I'm assuming he was tired of being used, whatever. Him and the commander get into altercation, a fight sequence of sorts, whichever. And of course, Anissa doesn't want to let on because she wants help. She doesn't care for Commander Carson Williams, whatever. A little arrogant, cocky with the mouth, whichever. Their fight scene, him and Ned, whatever, is really intense, whichever. And then, of course, Carson, Williams, the commander, does get upper hand, whatever, and eventually ends up killing Ned. So I was hoping that was a character because if you all remember in my trailer reaction, You see the scene, the guy, you know, with some sort of headgear on, whichever, and all that. And I was like, what is this? You know, what kind of powers he have? And they were very good powers that could have been utilized or used later on, but it's unfortunate we will not get to see those inhabited a little bit more throughout this actual new season. So I was kind of bummed about that, whichever. He did, of course, report to Odell, you know, about, you know, the Maccovians trying to infiltrate the compound, whatever, and all that. He's like, you know, deal with this, put, you know, Freeland, whatever, on lockdown, whichever. And that's kind of when you see, and it's kind of just giving him like the kind of like a side-eye little stare down, whatever, and all that. Clearly tell she does not care for him at all. Now, from there, you see the scene briefly of Jennifer kind of walking, like she's going to the ladies' room, whichever, and you can see that she's experiencing something where her powers become heightened a little bit, whatever, and all that. And of course, she's at school, she cannot use them, you know, not realizing why is this all of a sudden happening to her. And I'll kind of get into that as I discuss throughout the whole episode, whichever. You know, she just kind of decides to hide inside of one of the stalls to try to calm herself down as much as she possibly can, and then kind of go from there. So from there, you see the scene where Commander Carson Williams goes to see Henderson, and they kind of have a little run-in, you know, words of choice, whichever, back and forth, whatever, and all that. And of course, you know, Henderson does get a good little lick in, because he's told that he has to have some sort of news conference. He's being ordered. He doesn't want to follow whatever procedure. When he's like, you know, who are you? What, you know, what's going on? I'm like, I'm not listening to you, whatever, and all that. And when before he decks him, you know, of course, you know, the guys, you know, that work with Commander, you know, get a couple little punches in, whatever. And he's like, you know, you don't realize you need to be doing this, whatever. You need to make sure you do this before the end of the day. Because he starts to threaten him. He threatens losing, you know, his job, losing, you know, pension, whatever, to the point where he has nothing to offer, and his wife will leave him. Just putting all these critiques out of what can happen to him, you know, slowly trying to, you know, make him feel like, you know, you might want to follow this, whatever. But he's like, you better put that news conference, whatever. And in the end, he realizes he has to do it, because all these people at the police department, you know, report to him and look up to him, whatever, and all that. And in some ways, just stay in the loop, and it's probably for the best. As much as he doesn't care for this man, his arrogance, whatever, and all that, and it's just best for him to just go ahead and go along with it, whatever, until he actually has an upper hand on the situation, and then they can just deal with the commander at a later time, which I feel is just the best way to just deal with it, whatever. I can already tell I don't care for the Commander Williams. He's a jerk, you know. Definitely don't like him. It is what it is. So from there, you see Anissa, you know, talking to Gambi. She actually gets home. You see her new place. I thought that was interesting. You know, they remember they were all at home, so it looks like she has her own little place or digs or whatever. Comes home, put on some music, put some Shaka Khan or whatever and all that. But then we see that she has a secret room. So she goes into that, and she, of course, you know, opens it up, and she starts to talk to Gambi. They have a discussion about what she came into contact with at the compound. She met, you know, this gentleman named Ned, who called himself, you know, the other name he gave himself. And then she tells him about Commander Carson Williams. So that's when you find a little bit about him. Comes to find out he's a meta himself. He's able to mimic the powers of whatever meta he's in contact with. Interesting little abilities, which is actually a powerful one to have, honestly. But then there's a key to him. Like, he has to stay, as they say, healthy by using some sort of special serum. So that's very interesting. I'm gonna get into that when I kind of go back and just tell you my thoughts towards the end of this one. So, but I like that. I said, you know, special serum. Interesting there. So, but from there, you see the scene, of course, where she's given some information about, of course, upcoming transportation of some of the metas to a new location, whichever. So he gives her the coordinates, whatever. You do see an action sequence I'm going to kind of put up in here a little bit, where you see her stopping the bus, and that's when she kind of gets into a little, you know, little tussle with a couple of the guys, whatever, and all. They're guarding the bus, whichever, and all that. A good fight sequence, I will say. You know, I love it because, of course, she is now considered, and I didn't know this at the beginning, she's considered Blackbird. She has on, if you all remember her from the last season, whatever, and all that, she was normally just wearing a hoodie, but she's taken it to a whole nother level. She has, like, you know, a good little mask to cover her mouth and a little bit of her upper, so you can't really tell who she is, disguised, whichever. And she has on full, like, some sort of leather, you know, type of outfit, kind of like a tight little, skin-tight little leather jumpsuit outfit of sorts, whichever. And she has certain little things shielded on her eyes, so when they shoot, she's able to, of course, you know, bounce off, whatever. But, of course, she still has her own other capabilities with her own powers, whichever. So once she gets into it and knocks them out, she gets up on the bus. Of course, they're freaking out because they all stood up, and then they sat back down because they got scared. And she's like, we're going to take a little detour. And you see a couple of the guys like, okay, you know, she handled it out there. They feel comfortable enough that she's going to take care of it. And she actually ends up doing just that, because you see the scene where she obviously took them to Pastor Rammer's, like, church, where there is some sort of location, whichever, but they can't be home there forever. And he made that very known, whatever and all. They're having scared metas all in one place, and they can't go anywhere and all. That can turn out to be a disaster because they start to become a little bit, anxious and anxiety or whatever and all that of not knowing what's going on, whatever, and might end up, acting out. So they have to find them a better place so they can be safe. So that was actually a good part, whichever, because prior to that, you see the scene where Pastor does talk to the reporter, talking about doing certain things, doing certain things that he should not do that might be against the law. And she's like, and he's just like, yeah, there you go with the law again, whatever. He's like, I'm going to pray for you, sisters. Like, in the end, he's trying to do something that's beneficial to helping these people, whatever and all. Clearly, the authorities, the main authorities, which is the police department, are not able to help, whatever. And you have these other people infiltrating, trying to be in charge of stuff, whichever and all. They don't know that they can trust them, whichever. So that is definitely a situation that needed to be addressed, which I'm kind of hoping over the season we'll get to understand a little bit more as we go. So from there, they did harbor at the beginning that where's Black Lightning, talking to a couple of the people, the citizens, whatever and all that, wondering if he's dead or whichever. And of course, you see the scenes, throughout where it shows Lynn looking at the news and all that, and she's like, they think Black Lightning's dead, and he says, of course, Jefferson, maybe in some ways he really is, whichever. And that's truly not the case. People just really don't know what happened to him. It seemed like he was there and all of a sudden he abruptly is gone. And for that moment, they could kind of start thinking that he might have something happened to him, whichever. They don't know that for certain. They don't have a body, of course, so people can only just assume what is actually happening. So right now everybody's looking up to Blackbird, whichever, to be their solace of helping them in whatever way they can, so that's really interesting. Also, secondly, there's a part where you clearly see him having a moment where he starts to see a vision where he's able to look through parts of the, what's considered, I want to say they look like they're at the pit. And he kind of looks down and he does come across where he's able to open up and he's able to see through the walls and through the floor where he can see Issa. Of course, you all remember when they showed the pause last time, they showed Issa, they showed the girl, I can't remember her name, and then we of course saw Khalil. So we know, of course, he is alive. And, he has a discussion with Lynn. Normally when he could, see through certain things, that's because he had the suit. But now we're seeing that he's able to see without that. So that means there's certain enhancements with his own powers that he's not aware of, or he's starting to come into contact. Now that he's not wearing his little neck bracelet, causes him not to use his powers, because Odell felt, since he did his due diligence by, following instructions, whichever, and wanting to feel secure, since him and Lynn had to stay there longer and he couldn't leave, now he's giving him those privileges and all, unbeknownst to him, in regards to his real, other powers, or definitely knowing about his powers, but not knowing if they're becoming more enhanced. So that's a good thing. That, of course, is something hopefully they'll definitely keep to themselves, because who knows, later down the line, that will be good to know that he can utilize those, when he sees fit, whichever, which will make really good, and maybe some sort of, episode or a sequence or whatever. You already know how I feel about that. I love when him and Anissa and Jennifer can use their powers, whatever, and we get to see a cool aspect of that, so, but whichever. So from there, you see a scene where Gambi decides to, he reaches, of course, in contact with Anissa, whatever, she's with him, and he shows her some footage about something that, kind of caught his attention, and not thinking anything of it at first. You see it where you hear the audio, and the guy's like, oh, there's a leopard, the leopard ate such and such, whichever, and all that, and of course, Anissa's looking at him, and of course, it shows, of course, the leopard's gone, it shows this man in this suit walking around, but then you see the flash of the eyes. And of course, she makes a comment, Grace. That's Grace. So it looks like Grace is back. I noted that in my trailer reaction, how I'm hoping we'll get a little bit more information about that, what has happened, because I feel like that was not dealt with a little bit better. We got little parts here and there throughout season 2 that we know a certain situation with her. We just didn't go into detail, and you already know what happened the last time. Her, Anissa, and Grace at the time, her not knowing that was Grace, but then, Grace fully knowing that was her. They had a little fight, and that thing, whatever, ran out the window, whatever, and ever since then we have not seen any part of Grace since then, whichever. So hopefully over the course of the season we'll see a little bit more, and I'm really hoping we do for that, whichever, because I feel like that there's a lot to be dealt with in that story arc, whichever. So I'm looking forward to that. So from there, you see Anissa, of course, goes to like a little, bar, whatever, and all that and everything, and the reporter's there. She, of course, approaches her, wants to talk to her, kind of asking her stuff, and she's just like, wanting to know some things with her. She's like, that's what you all do, come up to somebody, that you don't want her asking questions, whatever, and all that. And it's just a part of her job, whatever. Her name is Jamila. And let's just say that they eventually hook up. And then, of course, they have a little discussion about certain things, about what's happening. She, can't kind of go back to her job, whatever, because she's kind of within the quarantine area of the curfew, so she can't kind of leave, whatever. So she's trying to find out more information. Trying to ask a couple things on this and all that, and Anissa can't really go into detail about that. But then it kind of goes to a point of her realizing what she's doing here, because she really doesn't want to, do a situation where she's using somebody, to get over someone else, and basically has to do with Grace, whichever and all. She is definitely missing Grace. We already know that. So that was kind of interesting, her bringing that up, whichever. I didn't expect it in the first season, so that was interesting. That, like I said, they actually went there. So, but yes, like I said, I'm here for it. I want to know more about that. She does get a call from Gambi, wondering the situation in regards to Jennifer. Now this is the part where you see Jennifer. She, of course, at first you don't know that's Jennifer. I didn't catch on to that right away. I should have known that when the person was doing their powers, because she does not look like herself. This is a female. She's an Asian female, and she's in some place, using her powers, but I'm like, oh wow, she has powers similar to to Jennifer. Wow. Then it shows a scene of her, sitting out somewhere, playing, on her phone, whatever, and this guy, little cute little young guy comes up to her and all that, asking her if she's winning, whatever. And she makes the old comment like, I always win. They start talking. He sits down. She offers him to sit down. They start talking. They show them walking, talking about being out for curfew. And he's talking about, I'm glad the 100 isn't out here. And he's just kind of doing his thing. All of a sudden, Anissa pulls up and she's just like, get in the car. That right there should have been like, okay, what is going on? And why is she talking to this little girl? Like, what the heck? And that's kind of when I knew, okay, it has to be Jennifer. Come to find out, Gambi did a cloaking device. And instead of using what she needs to be using, she's using it for her own benefit. She should not be out. It's considered a curfew. So, of course, Jennifer, and Anissa kind of get into it. And it's mostly Anissa letting her know, you need to be safe, whatever, and all that. Our parents are not with us. We have to watch ourselves. They're trying to find any medicine they can possibly find out here, whatever. You're endangering yourself. And Jennifer's like, if it's, she's just wanting to get out. And she explains to her, when I don't use my powers, it hurts. It really does hurt. And if that's the case, and you could have just been honest, whatever, and all that, they would have let you just, free reign, whatever, but you decided to go out. Anything could have happened to you. She's just, at times, could be such a hothead. It's just unreal. She doesn't think things through, whatever, and all that. She just does, and then deals with the ramifications later, whatever. She needs to get more smarter. Hopefully, over the course of this season, we'll get that. And Anissa just let her be know, if anything was to happen to you, I don't know what I'd do, whatever. And she just lets her know, please don't do this again. Promise me. And of course, she promised. And then they just kind of, drive off, whichever, and all that. But that girl, she is hard-headed. She does not listen at all. So, and then from there, you see where it shows Agent Odell uses Issa to probe Tobias about some information in regards to the briefcase. And at first he won't say, he's like, you really don't want to know about this. And he tells him to ask, keep asking. Eventually Tobias just lets him. And let me tell you, before he definitely reveals what he knows, if you can see the way Tobias looks, because he asked him if he was okay, Issa trying to get him to open up a little bit and all that. Clearly he's not using what he was using, which was some sort of yellow serum. You remember, guys, he was injecting himself to keep himself definitely youthful and younger. That is done. So he, of course, his hair is out. He's getting older looking. When they show the actual trailer, whatever, he has some certain bumps or whatever, some, certain situation with his skin, kind of changing or going through something, whatever. So it's just like, he does not look good. So it's going to be very interesting to see, what's going to happen with him. If he comes in contact with somebody who's going to help him, get him back to how he used to look. That's that. I have an idea about that. I'll bring that up towards the end. So from there, of course, when he finally reveals, he just says Proctor, who was the one from the first season, whatever, and all that, was working for Agent Odell, where Agent Odell has certain orders that were given to him by POTUS to deal with the situation with the metas and all that, and getting what they needed to get to deal with the Macrobians and all this. So this whole thing was set up courtesy of POTUS, of President. So it's really interesting, and it's almost like, he has a cleanup of stuff. So basically, now that Issa knows so much, whatever, it was sad because we knew it was coming, because every time someone helps him with certain things from season 2, like you saw how he killed all those guys, the girl and the couple of the guys inside the hotel when they were helping to set up the surveillance, and the Pierce was like, does anybody else know? He's like, no, it's just us in here. Killed them all right there with a silencer. Same thing with Issa. We already knew, and Issa said, he's like, you're going to kill me. He's like, you can read my... Clearly, And he's like, I thought you were going to kill me. He says, I already have. And you just clearly tell he put something in his food, whichever. So it's just a matter of time of when it was going to set in, whichever. The poor young boy, whatever. Now, Lynn knows about it because, of course, Jefferson told him that he saw Tobias. He says he doesn't look well. He looks like he could die. Same thing with Issa. Issa looks perfectly fine, whichever. And now it looks like, Odell does come clean, whatever, and all that about him, whatever. But basically lying about what he did to Issa. Not telling him like, oh yeah, he was with, certain things happen, whichever, and all, and he's dead. And of course he goes and he takes her to see his body, whichever. And it's just like, I know you think, don't think too much of me. None of them do, Agent Odell. It's like, I don't even know why he even asked her, said that statement to her, whatever. None of them like you. They would rather not be there. I know it's for the better good, for whatever the McCoveys are going to be, bringing to the table. And I'm really looking for a good payoff on that, since they keep bringing up the name like they're this disastrous, really bad, group of people. So I hope that part, when it comes due and we see that, the payoff, like I said, better be epic. So, but needless to say, of course, from there, you see the scene where it showcases Blackbird, of course, transporting the people through the woods. And you get this one arrogant guy, he just can't shut his mouth. It was like, we shouldn't trust her. She could just, and she had to deck him to shut him up. It's just like, oh my God, stop speaking. He was so annoying, and I was so glad because if he could have got them all exposed. So eventually they deal with it. The portal does open because Gambi's able to find a way. He had to work on to open it up long enough to get as many of the people through, whichever. And of course, at first it was fine. Then you see the part where Gambi's like, "Is everything look good on the on the surveillance that Jennifer's looking at?" She's like, "Everything's good." And eventually she looks up and you can see the difference in the infrared, where it shows the people in yellow, but then it shows the bad ones in red, whatever. And you can see they're coming from all angles. And of course, Anissa puts on a show, knocks down whatever. One of them tried to take one of the babies. I was just like, are you serious? So from there you see, she's able to get them through. And then by the time she's getting ready to go through, one of them uses their type of, ammunition, whatever, kind of causes an explosion, whatever, which knocks her through the portal and it closes, whatever. So she's of course injured. And you can clearly see the scene where it shows, of course, Jennifer, suiting up, whatever, on Game's like, no, we can't go. She could be dead. And he's like, I know you're right. She could be, whatever, but we have to play this right, whatever. And she's asking, what do you want me to do? One of her tasks of learning now, they're claiming, is that he wants her to work on being patient. He's like, you definitely need to do that. And from there, let's give Anissa time, whatever, first thing in the morning. If we don't hear from her, then we will go and we will find her. And of course, you can tell Jennifer's really not feeling this, but she's going to go with, what Uncle Gambi says, whichever, and all that. And she doesn't want to, but she has no choice. It's, it is what it is. So, and that's unfortunate, but it is how it's going to have to, that's how we have to play this that part out. So, and then from there, the ending, you guys, Lala's back. It's just like, that's all I can say about that. Lala is back. So that was the first episode. I really, really enjoyed this episode. It was just, good from beginning to end. There was no slow part, whichever. It was a lot of stuff going on, setting up certain layers with a lot of couple of different characters, of course, our regular characters, and some new ones we're introduced to. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to turn out with the McCoveys. Like I said, I want the payoff of the introduction. Whoever's in charge of the McCoveys, hopefully we'll get to see them. I want to see what they're going to bring to the table. If they have any particular metas, Dr. Jace is in their, is within their confines, so they're using her. So you already know she has to help them, whichever. So that's going to be very interesting how that's going to turn out. In regards to like I said, Commander Carson Williams, I want to see, what's going to happen with him, being that he has, and it's interesting to me because when I look at it like this, he's arrogant enough to feel like, he can do whatever he wants. But I said, if Agent Odell really wants to, deal with him, he's going to deal with him too. I said, he's using you to get whatever he needs to get done, and eventually has no problem killing you as well. I'm like, he really feels confident enough to know that he's not touchable. He probably is, and whatever special slurm he's using, I feel like Agent Odell probably has that, and probably utilizing that against him. Whatever he can use that, to cause him to deteriorate, whatever, so he's not able to use any of his powers, at all. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see how that whole interaction between those two turns out before the end of the season, because I feel like eventually this is a character who will not be on the show forever. He's not a staple for the show in regards to the cast. So we already know this will happen throughout this whole entire season, to the point where something's going to happen. It's going to be some sort of showdown between him and maybe Black Lightning, whatever, and all that. We'll have to see how that turns out. I'm hoping Henderson eventually links up with Gambi. They can find a way to deal with him, if that's the case, and some of his little minions, whatever he has working with him. That will be interesting. I did also say I'm ready to see Grace. I want to see how this is. I will say this. Someone did tell me, and I'm glad. I'm just going to say it on here, whatever and all that. You know, supposedly we might get a flashback of, you know, Grace's life, whatever, so we can get a little bit more understanding. And I want that because I want to see how the situation with her happened, you know, in regards to her abilities, whichever, the way she can change, I mean, an animal and then to straight to a human. I really want to know more about Grace. I'm very intrigued with her abilities, so I'm looking forward to that. And I really want her and Anissa to get back together over the course of the season, whichever. Just them giving us a little bit in this first episode, excuse me, is very helpful for that, because I can see the potential of what they're going to want to do. So I'm happy with a little bit, but definitely want to keep with what the main focus of the show is, dealing with the Malkovias, seeing what's going to happen, with Jefferson, you know, Lynn being there because they need to keep them safe, then seeing what's going to happen with Jen, and of course Anissa still being aka Blackbird. Also, when is Khalil going to come into play? When are we going to see Khalil? We know he's back, whatever. He's a part of the cast. Jordan Calloway's name definitely came up in the list of credits at the beginning of people who are part of the cast. So we know he's definitely a part of the cast this season. So hopefully it won't be too far. Maybe after the first maybe 3-4 episodes, he'll kind of come somewhere in there, because we can't keep that to ourselves. And eventually Jennifer's going to find out about that. And that might be an issue for Agent Odell. The fact that they find a way to, I don't know, resurrect. However, it's going to be real interesting. And secondly, will he be Khalil still to the point where he remembers her? Did he do anything to change him? Will he have any memory? That's what I want to know, because that would make a good layer on top of the situation of him not realizing who she is, and she, you know, her first love, and him not knowing who she is. That would be good, whichever, and her getting to know him as just a totally different person and personality, whatever, even though he's Khalil. That's just my take on that. That's where I would love to see how that would pan out. So that would be good. But other than that, this looks like it's starting off really good. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to anybody else that's being introduced into this new season. That would be nice. I want to see what's going to happen, of course, with Tobias. This is my thing. Lala not coming back. I wonder if Lala's going to find a way to get in it, because of course you already know he's always resurrected. So if they try to kill him, whatever, if he's going to be the one that's going to try to get Tobias out. You know, he has a certain hold on him, so you never know. That's what I think, because I wasn't expecting to see that in this first episode, him at the end like that. And it looked like a hotel room somewhere. You see a bag and you see the gun. So I'm curious about that. So I'm going to keep my tabs on it, because that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. Is he going to be integral in dealing with Tobias and getting him out of the pit? So that's my thoughts, you guys. Comment below on this episode. Tell me what you all think. Give me your thoughts on what you think might happen with any of these characters. I would love to know somebody else's thoughts and feedback on what you foresee happening all throughout season 3. And with that said, I will see you guys on the next episode of our review. You guys take care.